Hello and welcome back. This is part 2 in the revival of the Singer Futura electronic 2002 model from the 1980s. And if you've seen the previous video, you'll see that I assessed this machine reasonably thoroughly. Checked out the zigzag mechanism to make sure it was going to do its pattern stitches, and also, the feeding and the reversing mechanisms, things like that. And of course the other important things like the bobbin winding, gave it a test. So there seems to be quite a common fault with these models, and that is the buttons here don't respond very well. It takes a very hard push on the buttons to activate that function, or sometimes it doesn't even activate at all. So a common fault with these is these little push button tactile domes here, and behind these switches here, they get a little bit worn, if you like, or probably just a little bit of oxidization on the contacts here. And I showed in the previous video how to clean up that oxidization just with a little bit of fine sandpaper, just to run a fine piece of sandpaper in between the contacts there, just to clean those up. And that seems to improve their functionality quite substantially. And also you would have seen that I removed this board here completely from a 1000 model. So this is the 1000 model here, and as a trial run, because I'd never done it before, I removed the main electronic board from one of these machines here, just to do a little bit of a dry run to start with. I didn't show that on camera, but what I did then is I went to this 2002 model to show you how to do that, and found that that's quite different in the way that it's mounted. And in the end, this one from the 1000 model was very easy to remove, because although I didn't have to remove these this part here, I could have just removed or loosened this screw here to release this clamp, and that allows this board to pull out of this bracket here. I didn't realize that at the time, so that's why I took this whole piece out. And then when I went to do it with this model here, so they changed the design of this and added another clamping screw. So there were two clamping screws, and they were angled in on an angle. I'm not sure exactly which way it was now. We'll see when we get down to this one here again. And you would have seen that in the previous episode there. And that meant I couldn't get a screwdriver straight onto here because the motor was in the way. And I didn't want to damage the screws by trying to undo these flathead screws on an angle. So ended up having to take the whole motor out of this one. So it turns out the board here out of the 1000 model and the 1100 model, they're a lot easier to remove. A little bit more involved in this model here. But anyway, I got it to the point where I could at least access the switches here to give them a clean. I didn't take the board right out of this one. There's no need to. I just got it out enough to be able to remove the front fascia panel here, and that gives access to the buttons for cleaning up. And so I've gone ahead and cleaned all of those ones there. So that machine is ready to put back together, and that's the subject of this video. So I'll go ahead and show you how to mount all this back up, and then I might, while I'm here, just get some oil into the machine and maybe give it a quick service. Get this front cover off here, get down underneath, check the bobbin winder, lubricate the bobbin winder mechanism, and assemble the machine, and we'll give it a test run. Okay, so I'll just clear the bench here and we'll get right to it. So here we have the electronic board here. I'll start by reinstalling that, clamping that back down into the machine. We'll install this fascia here first, and then I want to also show you the motor and the little mount here. This is the adjustment block mount here that disintegrated in the last video, so I've got a replacement one of those as well. I've got a couple of mounts here also for these hinges here, but I don't actually think I need to replace those. They still look in reasonably good condition. So I'll leave those, but just to let you know that, you know, these are available, these little mounts here. And the other thing I noticed too, just when I was having a wee look around closely at the board here, see the little LEDs here, these are actually easily replaceable. You might be able to see that it looks, from a distance, it looks like they might be soldered in, but they're not. They can actually be removed by just pulling them out. They can just be pulled gently out of those little, there's a couple of little terminals there. So the LEDs can be easily replaced. And then if you're careful, line up the little holes there, and you can just put a new LED in there if it was, you know, blown or broken or something like that. We've also got this thumb wheel here that adjusts, you know, the different patterns. So we've got 4 positions there, and we just want to make sure that, you know, you can see that the wheel adjusts this little lever here, and we just want to make sure that that locates into this switch here. So this is the switch for the different positions, different pattern stitches there. So just want to be careful that that lines up properly. And also this switch here comes through the front, through here. So I just want to make sure that these little LEDs here, all these ones here, are lining up in the windows here. A couple of these LEDs had sort of bent up slightly. I just bent them down gently, lining up in the windows there. And then we start by attaching, there's 2 screws, one here, one down here, and they go in first. Tighten those 2 up, and then we put the cardboard backing on here. It's just a little insulation backing there. You can get these remaining 4 screws in here, that one there, and then we've got this mount down here that needs to be attached. Just tighten those screws up there. That piece there just goes in that way. I'll try not to get my hand in the way too much. It sits over there just like that there, and then we have a screw, just a Phillips screw there. There's a little cable tie there. Don't forget that one there, just like that. And the other thing to remember as well is, you know, this little sensor that I talked about in the last episode there, just make sure that that is free to go back down into here without hitting this plate on this shaft here. So that's free to move there, you see, but it's not now because this plate here is in the way. So just make sure that before you put that back down, that this plate is on the lower half of the shaft there, the underside. Yeah, so I'll just get these 2 mounting screws here. So that'll, you know, clamp the board down at the top here. That one. So while I'm here, I'll just tighten this one here. Just while I'm in this top end here, before I put this board back in, I'm going to get some oil onto the bearing here. Give that a small drop of oil. Just on that top bearing here, and then we can position this board back into place there, and then we can get these 2 mounting screws for this board in, and then we plug in this cable here. Can only go one way because it's keyed. Okay, push that down, on there. And before I forget, I'll get some oil onto this bearing here as well. And so now it's time to mount the motor. Oh, along with clamping up the bottom end here. And now I can do up these clamping screws here. Do those up tightly. These pesky screws that are on an angle so that you can't get the screwdriver straight onto them without removing the motor, which was a bit of a pain, but it's actually not too bad once you start getting into it. The motor came out pretty easily actually. And it's a good opportunity to check the motor mount, the condition of the motor mounts and things like that. So yeah, not too much of a big deal. This here reminds me of a battery holder, but it's the capacitors in there, big capacitors. I'll only, I would only check those if there were issues with the machine. Any sort of electronic issues or power issues or anything like that. That's when I would check those. I'll leave those in the meantime. So let's go ahead and get this motor back in. So we just need to install the motor. There's one mount here. There's the other mount. They're the hinge mounts. Locates into here and here. And then of course we've got the little motor block adjuster that slips into here. So I might as well just pop that in there now. I'll mount up the motor here, on there. And then it's just a matter of pushing this mount here back in until it stops there. And you can see that's where we get our belt adjustment from there. Tighten that there. And then we can screw this screw here in. This is the motor adjuster. And you'll see that the little eccentric pin will locate into this hole here as I screw that in. But you might be able to see the little pin coming through there now. Screw this screw here in. And just do it up until until it gets tight, and then I'll just back it off a little bit. And that will give you this motion here, will give you your motor belt adjustment here. Okay, so once we get that adjusted, I'll do the lock nut up. Motor belt next, motor pulley. Got the switch to get back on. Okay, that might be a little bit tight. Let's see how we go. Oh no, that's all good there. I'll turn the motor pulley while it's loose on the shaft there, and you can see it'll centralise. So that's where it naturally wants to run there. So I'll tighten it up there. So a little Allen key grub screw there. Yep, that's good. And then we can just flip the switch onto its little switch locator there. And there we have, that's on, half speed and off. And the motor belt tension needs a slight adjustment there. So you've got your adjustment on this here. You can see it getting tight there as I turn that screw there, that grub screw, and that's got the eccentric pin on the other end. It's pulling the motor down just slightly tighten that a bit more, and then we can lock that in place. Just hold that screw there so that it doesn't turn while I tighten the nut there. Okay, that's 14mm, not too tight, not too loose. Okay, so that's the board put back in, all set to go there. So I'll go ahead and we'll do a little service here. Okay, we'll might as well get the faceplate off here and have a look in behind and see what we've got. Just the one screw there, and there's another one just hiding up here. Whoops, and that allows you to take the faceplate off there. Nice good chunky piece of aluminium there, aluminium faceplate, bit of plastic on the top there, quite nice. And then, you know, we can get into this area. I'll give that a blowout with a compressor, and I'll also give this area here a blowout. Might as well take the bobbin case out as well. I'll show you how to do that. It's similar to the 700 series singers, but we've got this little latch to come back here, and then that allows that to slip out of the way there, and then you can take your bobbin case out. Might have to turn the wheel just to get that out there like that, and now I can get in there and give that a blowout there as well. I'll also go ahead and clean out the bottom end here, including the spider carcasses. Sorry about that. Giving that a blowout there now, and we'll start with the needle bar, just the needle bar bearings. Looks like they might be plastic bearings, but they're not. They're just they're a metal bearing encapsulated in this plastic holder here. And we'll probably also want to do this bearing here. That will be a zigzag mechanism, part of the zigzag mechanism there. We'll do the lower needle bar bearing, take up crank lower bearing, do the take up crank upper bearing, and the linkages for the take up lever there. Just the lower foot bar, press foot bar bearing there, that one there. So that's pretty much it for the top end there, and we'll go ahead and lubricate the bottom end here. So we'll start here with the main shaft bearing there, the lower main shaft right hand bearing. There's another one in the middle here, go either side of that. There's also an oil hole here for the feed, the main feed mechanism bearing there. And the reversing mechanism, I might as well give that an oil as well there, just on those bearings there. And then if we come across to the left side here, we'll get some oil onto the feed mechanisms here, feed bar there, a little bit of oil there either side, those bearings there. And some oil on this cam here. Should be able to get a little bit into this one as well. And then the hook drive left hand bearing there. And I might as well, yeah, that's loose. Yeah, that's an 8mm. So I'm just gently tightening that, and we've got the bottom of this is the bobbin winder mechanism here. So that's the little switch that I showed you in the first episode there. We're looking at it on a funny angle here, but this switch here, that lever, that engages the bobbin winder there. You can see it lifting. In fact, it's probably a good idea to get a little bit of oil down in between where it lifts up here on that hole, just to try and get a little bit of oil onto that shaft there to let it work its way down. You can see it's a bit slow to return. A little bit slow to return there still. So we'll oil it this end as well. Okay, let's get a little bit of oil on that. I can feel it starting to free up already. Yeah, it's working quite nicely there now. There's a little shaft here that goes up too into the body of the machine. I might as well oil that. Did I oil this here? Can't remember. Get some oil on that. I'll also oil the top of that as well. While I'm down here, I might as well oil these parts here. The feed linkage there. Just there. Oil on that linkage there. I think that's got everything that needs to be oiled down there. So as far as greasing is concerned, these gears here take grease. There's grease to go on this linkage, the slider here, and that's about it as far as I can see. Now the ideal way, you know, here is to probably clean off the old grease, any old grease that you can find, if you can easily, you know. I mean, a little toothbrush can sometimes help clean off some of that old grease there. Let's get it reasonably clean there. Just on the teeth surfaces really. Just want to try and get that as clean as possible. I won't get too fussy here today with it, but that's pretty clean there. I mean, you can get pretty fussy with it if you want to. Get your toothbrush and give it a really good clean in there. I don't have any cleaning solution on there at all. That's just a dry toothbrush, an old toothbrush. Let's get some grease in here. Grease this one here as well. Grease the slider up there, just a bit of grease in there. Should probably try and get some on the top there as well, if possible. Just a little squirt of grease in there. And I'll get the oil onto the top of this shaft here. There's a little shaft that runs down at the base of this. This little lever here is a little bit damaged actually. See, sometimes it doesn't disconnect or it doesn't unlatch. I have to hold the front of this down. This plate is what unlatches that there. If I hold it, the front down, it unlatches, no problem. But if you let the front of it come up, seems to be better. That's probably okay. I mean, if I was going to keep this machine, which I probably will, at some stage I will replace this here. I would like to replace this rusty looking slide plate here. I can get that off, I just slide it. So I'm just lifting the front here as I slide it forward, and that allows that plate to come off, and I'll see if I can find a nicer one off another machine. And while we're here, we'll put the bobbin case back in. Bobbin tension is adjusted here, just this little screw here, so undo it for looser bobbin tension, or screw it up clockwise to tighten the bobbin tension. So while I'm here, I might as well go ahead and reinstall the bobbin case there. What you've got to look for is this little lever here, this little stopper that butts up against this shoulder here. Okay, so you position the bobbin case into the machine there and bring it across to the left hand side so that the stopper butts up against the shoulder there. Make sure it's over to the left, and then you can just flip the little this little lever here across. Clip that back into place there, like so. And then while you're here, might as well lubricate the hook race there. Just a little drop of oil here. You don't want to put any oil around, you know, this area over here where the bobbin is. This is interesting. I just went to replace the slide plate here, which is a little bit rusty, with one I just grabbed off another machine, and I grabbed one off a 1000 model, and you can see they're actually a different length, a different size. So I went and grabbed another one from another 2002 model, which is in slightly better condition. It's not 100%, but definitely better. And the plates are identical as far as I know. So that's the 2002 model, and that's the 1000 model, and they look identical. So they should be interchangeable, although what have we got? We've got 2 holes in the 2002 model. 2 holes here, whereas we don't have that. So a slight difference there, and slightly bolder numbering here on the 2002 model. And yep, I've got a better looking presser foot there as well. Hello Molly. Hello, why don't you come say hello? Yes, it's Molly. Hello. Oh, you're going to show your bottom. Eh? Why don't you come over here? Okay, just going to look at cleaning these up. But that's the rusty one off the original machine there. And then we've got this one off another machine. But you might be able to see there, there's a few needle strikes on that plate there. And this is the original one here. It doesn't have as many needle strikes, but it is a little bit rusty. So I'll show you how to clean the needle strikes off here. This is a fine triangular oil stone there. And we just run it over the surface of the plate there. That's coming up not too bad there. It's certainly better. It's nice and smooth there. You can still see the needle strikes there, but that's nice and smooth there now. And there's none down in the needle hole that I can see from here anyway. Little one maybe, is very minor. I took a little bit of the paint off here too. When I was blowing the machine, I accidentally blew the compressor across this area here. It just sort of flaked a little bit of paint off. I'm tempted just to sort of chip some of that paint away, feather that back with sandpaper, and then maybe touch that up with a little bit of paint. Will be the plan for that one. Molly, hello. So we might as well put these plates back on here. The trick to these is to put the slide plate on forward of these clips here, and then the trick is to just get a little screwdriver and hold either end of this plate here up as you push the plate back there. It just clips it into place like that. So the end of the spring here should run down the little channels either side here. So that's good there. And I've got a cleaned up plate there to put back on. And I might as well put the shank, presser foot shank back on. Presser foot, I might as well put that on there as well. Now we're nearly ready to put the base back on. I must connect up these. Yep, so they actually clip together, these two. Then you should be able to just slide that in there and push that too until it clips in to the connectors in there. While I've got the bottom off there, I'll just explain about these gears here. You know, these machines are fairly reliable. I mean, obviously, you know, that little issue with the buttons, that's a bit of a pain. But the other thing that can go wrong with these machines is the plastic gears can break. Or, you know, strip a few teeth off. So these are the feed gears here. There's two. There's a long one here and a short one here, and 2 hook driving gears here. Now they are easy to replace. They're readily available. They're cheap. So yeah, I think you know, if one fails, it's definitely worth replacing. You know, that's not much different to any other machine that's got plastic gears in it. Really, at some stage they're going to fail. These ones look in pretty good condition, so I won't bother changing those out at this stage. These black ones here are especially reliable. The gears are pretty hardy, you know, I don't see many of them fail. And in fact, this gear setup here is very similar to other models like the 500 series machines. So this is very common setup and very common gears. Okay, let's slide the base. Oh, by the way, there's a little reset switch here, so that will trip out if the machine receives a surge, a power surge. That could trip. And then, if you've got no power on the machine, that's a good thing to check actually. It's just to push that little button back in. It's accessible from the bottom, even if the cover's on. So there's the little reset there. We're missing some rubber feet on this machine. I'll see if I can find some to replace that. And so it's just a matter of putting these 4 screws back in. 1, 2, 3, and 4 there. And the faceplate here, we'll just pop that straight on there. Pop it straight on, set the presser foot to normal, presser foot pressure to normal. Just do up the 2 screws there, this one there, that's the faceplate on. To put the lid back on, just line it up, just offset it to the right here so that it overhangs to the right, and then hold the lid down, and you can just slide it to the left. But while you're sliding it, you might have to push this latch down here to allow it to slide on. Hold the latch, and then should be able to just slide it to the left there, like that. And we should be ready to plug it in and try it out. I'll do this with the machine unthreaded. I just want to see that the controls are all working properly. So we've got engaging straight stitch there. Yep, that's looking good there. And we'll just double check the stitch length. So let's go to the maximum stitch length there. Down to the minimum. Yep, it's looking good there. So stitch length is working. And let's check the reverse now. Oh, nice. Yeah, nice, just easy. Nice easy push, like brand new. Okay, zigzag. Yep. So yeah, I think we're on to a winner here. Everything seems to be working. So let's thread it up and give it a go. You can hear just a slight hum from the electronics there. It seems to be fairly beefy electronics on these machines. They seem to be pretty reliable. Just a note on installing a bobbin that's already wound. Just flip the little latch up here, install the bobbin, flip the latch back down, and then draw the thread up like you would with any other machine. Just draw the bobbin thread up. Just like so. Bring the thread under the presser foot there, close the door, and we're all set to go. Not the fastest machine in the world, is it? But it's sewing. Tension could do with a little adjustment there. So I'll just loosen that bobbin tension just fractionally. It's nice and easily accessible here. Just go back a quarter turn there. Maybe a little bit more. Just feeling that bobbin tension. It's a little bit tight. Yeah, it could still be a little bit tight. I'll just back that off just a fraction more. Top tension seems to be okay. Yeah, that's looking better. Okay, let's try a stretch stitch here. Okay, so the stretch stitching is not balanced. So there's something not quite right. That's the stitch here that I have selected here. And you can see it's all bunched up there. So I need to do some adjustments there for the reverse stitching. So I'll look into that. The balance, maybe just the balance was out. No, it didn't really make that much difference. You know, that's on the maximum stitch, you know, balance there. You can see the little flowers not looking very flower-like. And then I stretched it, you know, out here with the balancer out here. It's still not looking right, so that's definitely something to look at. Yeah, I'll leave that for another video. This one's gone on long enough as it is. But definitely all the buttons are working nicely here now, so that's good. And, you know, reverse is working nicely. Yeah. So that's it for part 2 on the Singer Futura 1980s revival, and I think it went pretty well actually. I'm pretty impressed with the electronics in these. They seem to be fairly reliable, fairly robust. Obviously there's a problem here with the button switches that can be easily fixed. It doesn't take too much to get the board out once you know how. Even on this model I was complaining a little bit about having to take the motor out. But, you know, when you look at it, it's really just a matter of taking the pulley off, you know, releasing the belt tensioner and releasing one of the hinges on the motor, and the motor just pops out. Of course, disconnect the power cables that were going into the motor, and it just lifts out in your hand. It's pretty easy. Undo the 2 screws clamping the bottom of the electronic board, and then, you know, remove the screws out of the back here to get access. Take the front panel off to get access to these buttons. Pretty straightforward, no huge deal if you're willing to spend a little bit of time and take a bit of care. It's no big deal. You know, the problem with the reversing on the stretch stitches, I'll leave that for another video. I will try and fix that and see if we can get this machine fully operational. Everything else seems to be working fine. The stitch width selector, the stitch length selector, reverse, all the buttons are working nicely now. You know, okay, the gears can fail in these machines, but that's no different to any other machine that's got plastic gears in them. They're cheap, they're easy to remove and replace, no problems there. There's still a few of these around. I had one just in last week for repair, so there's still a few of these floating around, still kicking around, still going. You know, it was in for a minor repair, and customer's very happy with her machine. She just loves it. Yeah, so although it's probably not the most popular model around, I think that, you know, it still makes a very good serviceable sewing machine. So, you know, just even for basic use, it'd be fine. So yeah, as I say, I'll leave it at that, and thank you very much for watching. And thank you as always to my patrons on Patreon. Thank you very much for helping out. If you'd like to help support the channel, please take a look at patreon.com/sewing machines. And that's it for this one. So yeah, keep an eye out for more videos. Thanks again for watching. Doing a good job of supervising there, aren't you? Eh?